Of course, once again, thank you for being here. It's really wonderful to be worshiping our God together and visiting with us. It is really, really great to have you. I want to speak to you this morning about going into the world. Recently, I've just read a book. It's called New Day, and it's a book that Grant brought back from his visit to the States. An uncle of mine sent it to him. It is an amazing book. It's an amazing book. And I shared it with a number of people. I said I wish I could buy a bunch of copies and just give it to a bunch of people. And it was so expensive on Amazon and all these other places, and I looked on eBay, and unfortunately it was just too expensive. But then I went on to the Boulevard Church of Christ website. It was written by their minister, and it was a free download. So that was great. And it really spurred me into thinking once again, folks, how our obligation to share the gospel. So I hope you got some notes on your lap this morning and can fill them. But I want to take you to this morning to a number of things, and then I want to show you some pictures that might just blow your mind. We're going to go to John chapter 17. And this is what Jesus had to say. We're reading from verse 14. I've given them your word. Jesus speaking to the Father, Lord, I've given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they are not of the world any more than I am of the world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of it. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is true. And now verse 18, as you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. You might have heard that story about a guy sitting watching TV one night and the light goes on in his garage. It can only be that, somebody's broken in there and stealing from him. So he phones the police station and he phones the cops and said, listen, please come quickly. There's someone breaking into my garage. To which he's told, we have no one available. So he puts the phone down, and a few minutes later, he phones them back. He said, don't worry to come anymore. Take your time because I've shot the guy. And as of course, before you know it, the vans arrive, 15 people arrive, and the policeman caught the guy in the act. The policeman said to him, I thought you said you shot the guy. To which the homeowner said, I thought you said there was no one available. Folks, I know that is probably a fictitious story. Maybe it's happened somewhere along the line and somebody has used it. But I want to say to you in terms of the gospel, it should never, ever be said, after God has said, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every nation, it should never be said, there is no one available. There is no one available. Number one, what are we expected to go into the world and do? Let's have a look at just a few things before I show you some pictures. Number one, we are expected to go and proclaim or to preach the gospel. And that scripture that Philip so capably read this morning, Matthew chapter 28, I would remind you these are the words of Jesus, and they are his last words before he left this world. Then Jesus said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go make disciples of all nations. How do you do that? Well, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I'm with you to the end of the age. You know, this word go into all the world, probably many sermons have been preached on this one word. It's an imperative. It means go. Some even said, as you go, wherever you go. You remember that all authority in heaven and earth has been given to Jesus, and he said, go and make disciples. I mean, we always put weight on the last words that someone speaks. Yesterday, we said goodbye to Brian Delport, who passed away this week. And I was scrolling through the WhatsApps that him and I shared together. And he was such a gracious man. And in recent years, with his deterioration in health, he wasn't able to come and sit in his chair at the back there. And so he would watch our services online. And then he would send me a WhatsApp, make a comment, and express his gratitude. And so I looked through that and weighty words. There's no way I'm actually going to he's gone, so we're just going to delete him from my phone. The last words of Jesus, you go and you make disciples. Not go, build a career, get yourself all comfortable so you can put your feet up, go. You make disciples of every nation. I think Jesus was very clear in his instructions as we go, he said, listen, you don't want to be distinguished from the world. You need to be in the world, but don't conform to the world. Jesus never ever intended that we should withdraw from the world and then go and sit in monasteries somewhere so that we're not affected by the world. He said, no, you're in the world. You're in that neighborhood. You're in that business. You're in that school. You're in that fasting. Now you be yeast and you be light. You show that world about Jesus who came to take away the sins of the world. Be in the world, but not of the world. I read a very interesting thing this yesterday, and I never knew about it. We use this word gospel a lot. It comes from the Greek word euangelion. And the gospel meaning changed there well before our time. The gospel really meant the reward you would get for your message. Let me give you an example. In 2 Samuel, I forget the chapter, around about chapter 14. I'm probably off. There's this horrendous story of King David's son Absalom dying. And the story, if you know it, was Absalom, this very handsome guy, wanted to usurp his father. In fact, he had rallied some troops around him, and he was trying to kill his very own father. And the word had gone out from David to Joab. He's the commander of his army. He's, listen, you've got to fight against his armies, but don't harm my son. He wants to kill me, but you know what? I'm his dad. Cut a long story short, you'll know the story that Absalom was eventually killed. He was riding and his hair got caught up in a tree and he was hanging there, and one of the soldiers came and decapitated him. And so now the news has to be conveyed back to David. And Joab is deciding who's going to take the news, and ideally, people were, it looks like people were, I'll do it. Listen, you go, you give good news, and then you get euangelion, you get gospel, you get reward for the news. And they should have known that this was not going to be a reward. Because if you go back a little back in history, when King Saul and his son Jonathan died, by the way, King Saul took his own life, and then Jonathan was killed in that same battle. When the messenger came back to David, the command went out that the messenger had to be killed for delivering such an horrific message. And of course, this was the same type of thing, and Joab was trying to organize who was going to take this message and what he was going to say. But later, this word euangelion, the gospel, became actually the message and not the reward. And you can go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and read about the gospel message. The gospel is really the death, burial, and resurrection. And this would be the message that would go out into all the world. Number two, we are expected to go, and we're expected, church, to shine for Jesus Christ. It is so regrettable that the Barna Research Group, doing research about Christians and non-Christians, are saying sometimes there's very little difference. There's very little difference in lifestyles. There's very little difference in relationships. There's very little difference in media intake. There's very little difference sometimes in morals and in character. And I said, church, that absolutely should not be. How on earth can we go into the world and make an impression, make disciples for Jesus Christ, if we are not shining for Jesus? If we cannot be identified as people who are Christians, we look so different from anyone else. We had, and it just came to mind, and I wasn't going to share with you, but I'll tell you a little bit of a story. So I was at a gala, my granddaughter's gala this week, and I got talking to one of the other children's father. He came and spoke to Cody and Chanel, friends of theirs, and we spoke about different stuff. And he's a jeweler by trade, and he makes some of the most exquisite stuff. And he just out of the blue said, "I want to come to your church. I want to come to you. I want to bring my grandchildren to your church." And talk to them afterwards. There's only one reason for that. Why would you just do that? There is something different he spotted in somebody else, and it wasn't me. It's in some extended people who belong to our church family. They shine for Jesus Christ. He says there's something different there. I want to come to your church. That's what we all should be like. In the same way, Matthew chapter 5 and verse 16. Let your light shine before others. Let them that they might see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Church, we are different. And if you are not different from the world, you're just really, you're being disdained on the gospel and on our message. You know, as lights, we know about light. Light expels the darkness. Light provides direction. All those luminaries in the sky, you know, before the days of GPSs and compasses and all that thing, people used to navigate by the light in the star. You cannot navigate by the darkness, but you look to the luminaries, the light that God has put in His sky to help us navigate towards Him. And the expectation of shining in your notes is a call for us to reflect Christ to this world. Again, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 14. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. So first of all, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And then He said, now because you are my reflection, you now have become the light of the world. I want you to think about this as you write in your notes again. We must be faithful lights, because failure to walk in the light causes us to eclipse God. I have been said, we are not the light. We're not. All we do is reflect the light, like the moon. The moon is not the light. The moon in and of itself has no light. But the moon reflects the light. And how staggering it is to go out on a full moon night and no clouds out there and see and just be awestruck of how the moon has no light. It's just there to reflect the sun. But the problem is, there is one problem. The moon does not revolve around the sun. The moon revolves around the earth. And every now and then, it gets between the sun and the earth, and we call that an eclipse. It starts to eclipse the sun. And then, on rare occasions, we get a total eclipse. We get darkness during the day because the moon got in the way of the sun. You were once in darkness, the writer of Ephesians said, but now you are light in the world. Live as children of the light. Be honest with yourself this morning. Is my lifestyle just the same as everybody else's out there? Or can it be said, well, God look at me and said, you are a child of light, I'm proud of you. When we arrive at the judgment one day, will He be saying of us, Well done, good and faithful servant. You rejected the way of the world, and you were the light of life. And people were able to look at you and say, but I want some of that. Our final point this morning, number 3, we are expected to go and serve others. You know the amazing story of the Good Samaritan? Jesus told that story about how this man had been robbed and left for dead. And different people came their way, even religious people, and just went on their way. And then there was the Samaritan, he came. And then this Samaritan, this non-Jewish person, looked after him, saddled him up, took him, gave him housing, and paid for his treatment. And Jesus said to those he was speaking to, Luke chapter 10, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And then I've left it off your notes and off the PowerPoint, but Jesus went and said, go and be like this guy. This is the man you need to emulate, so people can see that you are my disciples. You are shining for me. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 20, verse 20, I didn't come into this world to be served. I'm not the one sitting calling for service, but I came to be served and give my life as a ransom for many. But the world says, you know what, you've made it if you have a whole bunch of servants. Jesus said, you've made it if you are serving many. The first century church is just a staggering enigma to me. In Acts chapter 6, and you know what happened there. It's just the church is growing at exponential rates. Not a linear rate, exponential. I mean, they're just having baptisms like every day. And I wonder if that could ever be possible this day. You know what? It was because those people were different. Not all of them were theologically trained, but everyone understood, listen, I can help because I can serve. I can be a light because I can make a meal. I can help with some clothing. I can go and I can sit and I can pray with someone. And in Acts chapter 6, it became, the burden of looking after everybody became so great they had to appoint special men so that as they were helping the widows in their need, everyone was taken care of in a proper way. The early church was freakishly generous. The church, I wonder if we're not shining because, we're building our barns and we're filling up and we're filling up and we're looking after ourselves. And there's people in a hurting world that just don't get to see us shine. And then the final one I want to show you, and as a result, the first century church realized that service was attractive to the lost. In Acts chapter 2, they sold their possessions and gave to anyone who had need. And guess what was happening? People were saying, I cannot believe this. I'm not even a Jew. I'm a Gentile. I'm a Roman. I'm a Parthian, Mede, Elmanite, Mesopotamian. I'm from Judea. I'm from all these other places. But look at this. I can't believe what these people are doing. There's something special about them. And they listened to the word. And of course, the first day, 3,000 people were baptized into Jesus Christ. Let me tell you a quick little story as we end. In 2019, so I've been part of an organization called Gospel Chariot Missions for a number of years, many years now. And every year the organization raised millions, really, of rand and bought trucks and sent them into Africa. But you know what, we've got 15 trucks, by the way, and they're going in all areas of Africa, Ugandan, Kenyan, Namibian, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, going into South Sudan. Now, it's really doing a great job. But George called me up, who really heads up this ministry, and said, Ryan, I've seen a thing, and I think it might be of great benefit to our ministry. It's called Four Fields Ministry. would you come on this course with me? I said, great. He said, it's on Perth. He said, I'll pay for your air ticket. So he bought me an air ticket and I flew to Perth. I was just there 7 days. The course was for 5 days. It was in, and we sat in this, and it was just the most amazing thing. And we both agreed, this is giving tools to the people who are on the trucks and other people to really go into all the world and make disciples. So we came back and we organized a training locally in Pretoria, and George had a team come did some teaching. I did some of the teaching there, and he at great expense flew people in from Uganda, from Kenya, Nigeria, from Zimbabwe, from Namibia, Mozambique, and some people from West Africa, from Benin. I particularly remember Dr. George Kapagli from Benin. And we did a 5-day course up there, intense, and it was just amazing. And some people were, Dr. George, he sat at my table. We all sat at different tables, and we'd take turns to teach. And George decided to stand for a while. He didn't know if he wanted to buy into this, and there were some reasons he wasn't sure. But anyway, afterwards, everybody went home. Folks, that was 2019. I can't begin to tell you the increase that God has given that little thing. So those people went home and started to implement that training that they had to receive. And from there, that thing just went mushroomed. It went to Africa. Have a look here. Uganda, Nicaragua, Zambia, San Jose. There's different places in Nigeria and Kenya. And of course, it's gone over to the South Americans, India, Honduras, Philippines, Uganda, Venezuela. I'm sorry that's so quick. Liberia, Ecuador. There's so much online training going on all over India and different places. Namibia, Latin American countries have just gone crazy. There in Kathmandu and Nepal, some staggering things have happened. Cuba, can you imagine from that little beginning? Sierra Leone, Peru, Germany, Benton, Arkansas, it's gone. Australasia, India, Australia, Zambia, we can just carry on. Every single day, I'm getting close on maybe 100 WhatsApp messages. We've started another church, we've planted another church, we've had another, 50, 60, 70 baptisms, and just on and on. I would really encourage you, if you have the time, so maybe you want to write on your notes, go and have a look at Gospel Share Mission. Gospel Share Mission. Dale, if you will go up onto gallery at the top there, are you able to see it? So, I just scrolled it up. This is some of the original training we did up in Pretoria. Just come down a little bit. And you're about to see the gospel. See, there's a truck in the background, one of the 15 trucks. By the way, many of them are they come down for repairs down to the Pretoria campus that we have. And on just a weekly basis, people are flocking there to hear the gospel. There's my ugly face there and doing some training. Right in the middle below me is with a grey beard is Dr. George Akapabi. This man, I just cannot. He has embraced this Four Fields ministry. He's gone back, and what he's done in West Africa is mind-blowing. He's got all the countries around him, and he brings people into training and sends them back out. During the COVID times, and remember 3 years since 2019 was COVID time, the people were doing online Zoom training. People with little money would take what they would normally do with spending on food and luxuries, and they would put it on cell phone data, and they would be climbing up into trees. We've got people climbing up into trees so they could be part of this ministry. I think this year, I don't know, just 2023, the goal is to reach over 1 million people for Jesus Christ. Just this year. I've lost count of the baptisms. We try to keep count of baptisms, but it used to be thousands, and it went to tens of thousands, and now it's gone to hundreds of thousands of people. You probably heard recently about how the gospel is declining in Europe. You've probably heard, you've probably seen that on the sides of buses there are signs and stickers that say, "There is no God." And I'll tell you what, Africa is going to be sending missionaries to Europe and the Americas. Fernando is our contact in South America. George came upon him one day, and it was the most explosive disciple maker I've ever met in my life. And George gave me a call and said, "Listen, I think we need to bring this guy on board, on full-time on tour." So we had a Zoom, and I got to meet him for the first time, and I'm just blown away. Man of Mexican descent, he came over, and highly intelligent man. I forget he had some illustrious career, gave it all up for the gospel, and then and now he's just going around. The Latin America's gone crazy. You cannot believe how the Church of Christ is doing in Cuba, Nicaragua, Colombia. I mean, it's staggering. In Nepal, I'm on some Zoom things there in the Indias. It's just unbelievable what's happening. Because people, we are not talking about trained people, folks. We're talking about members of the Church of Christ who say, "I can do that. I can go and share these tools." And later on in the year, I'm going to be doing a full course with us as a church. We need to be empowered, and we just need to get excited. And everybody can do this. Dale, I wonder if you could just go back to the top of that website. I just want to show you the translations, what this is, how this material has gone to. So far, English, Espanol, Portuguese, some Indian language, France. So you can see, and then coming students. So the material's been translated into all these different languages, and it's every week. My phone is just exploding all day, every day. Dad said, "I don't know how you keep us." I can't read all those reports. It's just nice to see there, and we're just going, just baptism, people being baptized day after day after day after day. We keep becoming disciples, not just baptized to sit in a church, but baptized to share the gospel with a colleague at work through the tools that are available. By the way, there's plenty of tools, and they're all on the website. Let me just tell you as a final story before we close. You know, we've got a preacher training school up here in Waterfall. Well, we've got 8 men who are full-time, and they come and they study the gospel in the morning, and they are given these tools, and then they go out and they do the training. By the way, every Saturday they're going out. Even after week 1, they're sharing the gospel. Recently they went on a trip to Matatiele. By the way, Matatiele is where Debbie was born. They've had all those rains up there, and their vehicles got stuck. And eventually someone had to come by horseback over 2 hours to get them and take them to this one area. They taught the gospel. The very first person to be baptized, it was a man who was 85 years old, and he was a member of the chief's council up there. And his house had been destroyed, or most of it, a lot of it had been destroyed because of they made brick houses because of all these storms. Anyway, don't worry about that. And they were preaching the gospel. They didn't have the big halls. They didn't have the big tents that we have, but they were teaching these tools, teaching them and making them disciples. In 5 days, they baptized 29 people. Colin came back and wrote a report. I sent the report to some people I know in Dallas, Texas. An elder from the Garden Ridge Church of Christ who supports, who used to support our mission. One of them, he was so moved. He sent $500, which turned out to be 8,500 rand, to buy bricks to rebuild that man's house. And our students and Colin Galeka, our school principal, will be leaving Waterfall in 2 weeks' time. And one of the preachers, by the way, in that area, he's a bricklayer by profession, and they're going to go and rebuild that man's house and work with the church that's been recently established. Folks, it's not good enough. It's not good enough to say there is no one available. We need to be available. We need to shine. We need to be a reflection of Jesus. We need to be generous to a fault. And by the way, this congregation has been amazing. So many of you have donated so many clothing. You know, we take it up. And when they go on these mission trips, they have to help these people in rural areas with this clothing. It gives credibility. So we're not here to take from you, as so many churches are. You know, you pay, corker. They're there to serve. And people, I tell you, the gospel is attractive. We just need to make sure that we are shining. We are shining. We are going, making disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all the things that He has shared to us. And lo, I will be with you. I will be with you, said Jesus. Let's stand together.